From punching a shark in the nose to slurping down your own urine, here's a handful of survival myths that need to die before you do. Being lost in the woods is understandably a common fear for many, but if you ever find yourself separated from your hiking group, just know there are some helpful techniques to help you orient yourself and get back to safety. And you don't even need a compass. One well-known navigational tip is that moss only grows on the north side of a tree. The only problem is, that's not exactly true. Now, some moss does actually prefer the north side of trees in the northern hemisphere, because the sun tends to be in the southern part of the sky, making that side hotter and drier and thus less conducive to the growth of moss. Ultimately, there's nothing special about the north side of trees that make them prime for moss growth. It's more a matter of which side of the tree is damper. Sometimes that's the north side, sometimes it's not, which means you shouldn't rely on this half-truth to navigate if you're lost in the woods. This trope has appeared in several movies, TV shows, and video games. Someone gets bitten by a snake, so their friend cuts the wound, sucks out the venom, and spits it out. And in 2015, KTXL reported that a pregnant San Francisco mom actually tried to save her son this way. Mama bear instinct in me decided to suck the venom out because that's what Bonanza does, she said, referencing the TV Western. But according to the article, she was lucky she didn't hurt herself or her unborn baby by doing this. People don't really die from snake bites anymore, said Al Wolf, director of the Sonoma County Reptile Rescue. Lori Osborne, the education director for the Reptile Rescue, says, all the hospitals in the Bay Area have anti-venom. It's a pretty common thing.
No tourniquet, don't make a cut over it, don't suck the poison out. All those old school methods have been proven not to work.
Instead, it's now recommended that you skip the first aid attempts and focus on getting emergency care as quickly as possible. While it's rare these days that anyone dies of snake bites, if you don't seek immediate medical attention or can't reach a hospital in time, you could succumb to the toxic venom and die. You might have heard that if you're ever attacked by a shark, the best way to get it to flee before it devours you is to give it a solid punch right on the snout. But this is actually a great way to get yourself badly maimed or even killed, according to the New York Times. As zoologist and director of British Columbia's Reef Quest Center for Shark Research, R. Aidan Martin, told the outlet, if you miss the snout, its mouth is unfortunately very close by. Instead, it's recommended that you go for even more sensitive areas, like the eyes or gills. Shark researcher Ryan Johnson concurs, telling the BBC that trying to smack the shark on the nose might actually give the fish the impression that you are edible after all, since you are sticking your hand around its mouth. Instead, he says you should use whatever you can to nudge the shark out of the way, preferably something hard like a pole, a stone, or a piece of diving equipment. If that's not available, try to keep your hands as far away from its mouth as possible and fight for your life. Luckily, you probably don't need to worry about getting attacked by a shark anytime soon. The Florida Museum reports that only 57 unprovoked shark attacks were confirmed in 2022, which is pretty dang low considering how many people live near water and like to go to the beach. Meanwhile, tragically, humans kill an estimated 100 million sharks per year, according to a study published in Marine Policy. In movies like Twister and Man of Steel, people survive tornadoes by taking shelter under bridges and highway overpasses. And there is one recorded instance of a news crew surviving a deadly 1991 tornado in Kansas by hiding under an overpass as well. But during a presentation detailing a deadly 1999 tornado outbreak in Oklahoma and Kansas, in which several people died hiding under an overpass, the National Weather Service insisted that such structures provide little to no shelter from tornadoes and other severe storms. The video of the 1991 incident led to huge numbers of people erroneously placing their faith in overpasses. But the truth is, the crew only made it out alive because of a number of unique circumstances and a helping hand from Lady Luck. So why wouldn't having several feet of concrete over your head help protect you from a tornado? Well, in actuality, tornadic winds aren't contained to the funnel itself and don't only go up, meaning the overpass does nothing to disrupt the column of turbulent wind. Instead, the winds often move horizontally and may actually increase in strength underneath bridges and overpasses by creating a wind tunnel effect. rendering overpasses and bridges not only useless as shelters, but arguably worse than being out in the open. Instead, if you're outside and can't make it to a suitable shelter, try to find ground that's significantly lower than the roadway, lie there, and keep your head covered. Cutting back your consumption of scarce resources in desperate situations is often necessary. You don't want to eat more than you need if you don't know where your next meal is coming from, after all. So it follows that as thirsty as you might get if you're stuck in the desert, lost at sea, or without power, you should only allow yourself a sip or two of water when you're about to collapse from thirst.
More. No. More. No.
But this is actually a bad idea. FEMA advises you'll need to drink at least a half gallon a day if you're healthy and in a comfortable environment. But that won't always be the case. And even if you're not in sweltering heat and nobody you're providing for is a child, nursing, or sick, that doesn't account for the water you'll need for washing and cooking, among other things. Thing is, there is simply no scenario where you survive a long time in an emergency situation without adequate water supplies. Drink whatever you need now, and make finding more water a priority for tomorrow. Then reduce water needs by staying as cool as you can and reducing physical activity if possible. That being said, Very Well Health notes that you can stay hydrated while keeping an eye on the supplies. Don't ration water, but only drink if you're actually thirsty. As it points out, the whole 8 glasses of water per day thing is also a myth. The Guardian reports that a man was rescued in 2012 after spending an astonishing 2 months trapped in a snowed-in car. He had good clothes but no food, and only survived that long because the igloo effect kept his vehicle relatively toasty, and by eating snow for nourishment. It's obviously an incredible story, and doctors at the time said humans couldn't have lasted much longer without food. But don't go thinking you can survive indefinitely just by eating snow. First, the Washington Post reports that while most snow is probably fine, you should be aware that it might contain some unwanted ingredients. Those can range from rock salt, if you're picking it off a street or sidewalk, to animal waste, to pollutants in the air, to certain types of algae. And obviously, if the snow is yellow, don't put it in your mouth. However, the biggest issue is for anyone who might be eyeing the stuff in an emergency survival situation. As FEMA points out, eating snow can actually make you more dehydrated. If you're thirsty and stranded in a wintry environment, try to find ice instead. Primarily because ice takes a lot less effort to melt. That matters because if you don't melt it before eating some, it can lower your body temperature, risking hypothermia. Furthermore, since snow is mostly air, you'll need more than you think to get a decent amount of water out of it. Okay, it may seem a little gross, but drinking pee in an emergency might make sense to some. It's liquid, you're thirsty, plus Bear Grylls did it, right?
A little bit of pee into the mouth is just going to help moisten it, take the edge off of thirst.
And who could forget when Saul did it in Better Call Saul? Not to mention that every once in a while, you'll come across stories in the news where people drank their own urine to survive dangerous dehydration. But WebMD warns against this. Your body got rid of the urine for a reason, so there's not much in it but a bunch of stuff that definitely won't help if you're dehydrated. In fact, by the time you're desperately thirsty enough to even consider it, the article maintains that your body is already so low on fluids that whatever comes out is going to be extremely salty and therefore far from the refreshing drink you need. And if you ingest too much sodium, you'll only get more thirsty, making the problem worse. The article also points out that drinking urine can lead to infection, unbalanced electrolyte levels, and even dangerous overmedication, as you'd be reconsuming whatever drugs you took earlier that your body just got rid of. You're stranded in the wilderness with no cell reception or supplies, and rescue may or may not be coming. So, what do you do now? If you've watched a lot of wilderness survival guides, you might believe that you need to find food as soon as possible. After all, you don't want to be scaling cliffs or fighting off mountain lions on an empty stomach, but in reality, food isn't even close to your top priority. In a nutshell, you can go 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. Therefore, you need to make sure you're protected from the elements with access to fresh water before worrying about your next meal. In fact, you don't really need much food at all. as 24 to 48 hours isn't long enough for food to become a major priority. However, if you're stranded for longer than 48 hours, it's recommended you try eating any healthy animal as long as you cook its flesh. According to Scientific American, how quickly someone will starve to death depends on many factors, most importantly their hydration levels. If a hungry person still has access to water, they can survive for longer than you might think. Now, nobody is recommending you try this as a cool weight loss tip, but it does underscore the importance of hydration. In 2015, the Portland Press-Herald reported that Allison Hudson survived a terrifying earthquake and the resulting avalanche in Kathmandu, Nepal, because she huddled in the doorway of her apartment for hours while everything came crashing down around her. Had it not been for that and her quick thinking, she might have been buried in the rubble. But you should be very careful about trying this yourself. Earthquake! According to San Bernardino County, there used to be some merit to the idea that doorways were the safest place to be during earthquakes. This is because they used to be the most structurally sound part of many houses, and were often the only thing left standing in the aftermath of big quakes. But that was before modern construction standards changed the game. Today, houses are much sturdier and less prone to collapse, and doorways are no longer any stronger than other parts of the building. Furthermore, violently swinging doors could be hazardous. Instead of hunkering down in a doorway, the article recommends that you drop, cover, and hold beneath tables or desks if inside. If you're outdoors, get as far away as possible from outside windows, trees, or power lines. The CDC concurs and adds another reason to avoid doorways during earthquakes. They don't protect you from flying or falling objects, which are now the most common cause of earthquake-related injuries since fewer buildings are collapsing.